Hey everyone, welcome to Crushing Classical, redefining a thriving classical music career. I'm Tracy Friedlander, and I'm so happy you'll be joining us for this interview. On today's show, I had David Taylor, founder of a youth orchestra program in Yorkshire, England called Yorkshire Young Sinfonia. David is doing so many cutting edge things in his program, like incorporating social media use during concerts, among other things that people think he's a little crazy for doing. He's certainly breaking molds over there in the UK by introducing his style of program for young musicians. He's got big plans, and it's really inspiring for anyone thinking of starting their own program. You're going to love this chat. But before we get started, I want to thank Fix Music for providing the hosting for the show. When you're looking for high-quality sheet music at affordable prices, look no further than fixmusic.com. And get this, they are making so many improvements to their site. Starting now, they have lots of music for all the strings, as well as continuing to add music for winds and brass. They have improved checkout to use real-time quotes for priority 2 to 3 days and priority express overnight shipments. And unlike many of their competitors, they do not pad these methods to make more money. If you need it fast, they will get it to you as cheaply as possible. They also have some fantastic options for making music buying easy for students through teachers and schools. Haven't we all had that problem where you ask students to get something for their lessons and they come back and say they couldn't find it or the music store didn't have it? Or any number of other excuses? Let Fix Music take care of this problem for you. Whether you have a large private teaching studio or you run a music program, Fix has a solution for you. Contact them through their website for more information. And for Crushing Classical listeners, just for you, use the discount code CRUSH and get 10% off your order now. Check them out at fixmusic, F-I-C-K-S music.com. Thanks for joining us. Let's get started. David, welcome. Thank you for being on Crushing Classical.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the time you've taken to get in touch and to talk to you as well.
Great. So tell me more about yourself. Well, first of all, I know that I discovered you on Instagram and I found out about Yorkshire Young Sinfonia. So before I hear about yourself as a musician and how you got here, tell me a little bit about the youth symphony. It's a youth symphony, correct?
Yes, that's right. So it's a regional residential youth orchestra course is probably the sort of the most accurate and the most boring description of it. So for people listening who won't know where Yorkshire is, it's a region of England. There's 5.5 million people here, which is the same size as Scotland. So we're bigger than Wales, same size as Scotland.
Wow.
We don't have like a youth orchestra that pulls together with our cultural identity. So there's a National Youth Orchestra of Wales, a National Youth Orchestra of Scotland. And there wasn't one for Yorkshire. So even though we're not a country, it was trying to, it's basically filling the gap of something that represents the cultural identity of the region.
I see. That's great.
Yeah, so we come together once a year for a residential youth orchestra course, and they come together, live together, work together, play, perform, and then it's an action-packed week.
Oh, so it's a once a year week intensive, and then do you have things that are going on through the whole year, rehearsals and things like that?
Little bit. So in the past, we've done some sort of one-off masterclasses to try and give young musicians more performance opportunities. I'm not sure what it's like in the States, but here it's actually the art of practicing performing here is so overlooked. And you get to your grades or whatever it is, and you realise you've actually not performed in front of people before. It's a strange, unusual phenomenon, and actually performance is a skill, and you need to practice performing. So we have done those in the past, but at the moment it's once a year and there's this big build up to it and trying to keep in touch with people.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. So tell me how you're a musician, and tell me about your path as a musician. How did you get to the point where you decided to start Yorkshire Young Sinfonia?
Yes. So it's a bit of a bizarre path. So I grew up not the most willing of music students. I've got an incredibly talented sister who will probably listen to this and cringe now I've said it. And she was a pianist when she was younger, and I sort of followed in her footsteps, trying to emulate. So I started playing the cello at age 9 after being an appalling piano student for quite a few years. Then always liked it, and it was always my sort of community, but didn't really commit to practicing or any sort of structure around things. I then went to university and studied history for a year, and then realised there's an absolute ton of essays, which is really dull. And during that time, I got a really good cello teacher who was at the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra, or CBSO. So if you don't know the CBSO, you will probably know Simon Rattle, And that's where
Right.
he started his career, and he made the CBSO into this big international phenomenon, or continued to make them into it.
Wow.
So I got a teacher there, and that really I found I could play a lot better than I thought, and realised I could make a career out of it or something. So I ditched the history degree and thought essays aren't for me. Then went to Birmingham Conservatoire, and there I started studying sort of the normal conservatoire route through things. I had a mixed time through there, I think everyone has frustrations with conservatoire settings, and also I'll hold my hands up and say that at times I was a bit lazy as well.
Mm.
It's an unusual setting, I think, music conservatoire. So it's trying to find the best route through there was my sort of difficulty. I then left after 4 or 5 years, a bit disillusioned with music, and applied for a job for a laugh because I was a bit drunk and checking out musical chairs on the internet. 2 weeks later, or 3 weeks later, I was then on a plane and started teaching cello at the Edward Said National Conservatory of Music in Jerusalem,
Wow.
for which my mum has only just forgiven me for. This wonderful moment saying, I've got a job straight out of university. I've got a job. Oh, congratulations. Like, yeah, it's not local. So, heading off to part of the world I've never experienced before.
Right.
And, sort of then having 20, 30 cello students a week of complete mixed ability between beginners and then exceptionally advanced students, and sort of learning more about being involved in teaching in conservatory. And then came back to the UK with zero business skills, and then decided to create YYS.
So yeah, well, hey, you know what? The best way to learn a business skill is just to start a business, right? That's how you learn it. Hands-on training, right?
Could not agree more.
So tell me, you know what I love about what I've learned about Yorkshire Young Sinfonia so far is just how different, how modern it is, how you're incorporating social media and all these different things. And you seem somewhat outspoken about how the symphony experience needs to change. And I think you're incorporating some of those things into YYS. So would you start telling me a little bit about that?
Yes, definitely. So I think a lot of the things that I put into YYS, and the things that we do, and the branding and the level of tuition and the additional skills we deliver, it sort of bore out of my frustrations at what I didn't know when I got to conservatoire and then further on. And sort of turning up and thinking, why didn't I know X, Y, and Z? I feel so unprepared. Or why isn't it applicable to 21st century? Why is it this god-awful beige poster that looks shit? And why can't it be something exciting and vaguely modern that someone's actually put together?
Yeah.
So as you were saying about concert experience, one of the things we did this year, we did on a large projected screen, we had a live hashtag feed. So before the concert, it was going around with sort of logos of people who were affiliated with us, and also then the hashtag, and encourage people to interact. In the concert program, we had a little bit more information. So then this is the hashtag. Here's some etiquette as to how to interact with it. So like turn your screen on silent, screen brightness down, phone on silent. So you're not disturbing people around you, but it's still you're interacting. Then at the interval, the hashtag with both Twitter and Instagram was going around with people's thoughts, photos, anything and all that going on. And then again, at the end of the concert as well, that was then still going around with people's opinions and things on social media there. So it was an extra additional experience that we're putting onto it, which I think is something we need to do in classical music more, is actually work out what our experience is and what we are offering, and having more value for that.
That sounds so great. Well, not only that, I think you probably taught some of your audience members how to use hashtags right then, because it's not always something that all the generations know how to do. If you had some older people in the audience, they're probably like, this is new to me, And then on top of that, what a great way to generate a huge conversation about your concert. I just love it, like in real time.
So much. And to be entirely honest, it wasn't really the most thought through of plans. It was sort of this would be a really nice way of doing it and just getting some more content. And it must have been like 7th, 8th, 9th down my priority list, to be honest. And what really amazed me is sort of not really being particularly thought through was that not only were people interacting in the concert in real time and interacting and that being displayed sort of, obviously not real time, but sort of at the intervals when it's appropriate, but that in the week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks afterwards, people were still interacting with each other and replying to each other's photos and building a community around it. So not only was that we were sort of promoting and provoking conversation at the concert venue, we're still making people interact with each other afterwards, which I did nothing to promote, which I'm quite surprised by.
That's great. And now you can talk about it too. Is like, hey, this is something that made an impact on our orchestra concert and everything. I just love it. It made me think of recently I interviewed these two violinists. Their group is called Black Violin, and it's like a hip hop violin duo. And at the beginning of the concert, they're in a hall that they rent it out so that it's the standard message goes out, the pre-recorded: turn off your cell phones, make sure everything's put away, don't use flash photography. And then the first thing that they come out and they say, hey everyone, that announcement that just happened, ignore it. I want you to use your phones. We want you to take as
Perfect.
many pictures and put them on Instagram, put them everywhere, just hashtag us, and it'll be awesome. So I did it through the whole concert, and I did my Instagram stories and lots of stuff on Instagram the whole time I was there, and it was so much fun. And people were like, "Hey, I felt like I went to the concert, even though I live on the other side of the country and stuff." So
Oh, so
it was
much.
neat.
And especially like if you're there to see someone in the orchestra, like you might not be able to get the best photo of them, but someone else might tweet that photo to you or Instagram it, and you get to see other experiences from it. And I remember seeing Ray Chen
Yes.
did like a live video from one of his concerts recently. He stepped in for Nicola Benedetti with Manchester Camerata, and she
Oh,
was ill, and sort of so mid concert he did like a live, I think it was Instagram, but did like a live video, and sort of just his face and turning around, and the entire concert audience then cheering and waving and sending like a sort of get better message to her. And sort of that
that's great.
and that level of interaction with audiences, it breaks down the barriers. It's not this weird sort of you're sat 15, 20 meters away from the stage. You're actually part of it.
That's
Um,
really great. That's a perspective people can't get. So that's using social media for good, and I just think it's great. I love that you're pioneering that with the young orchestra too, because maybe that'll help it become part of organically become part of what they expect as
well,
they get older.
so much. I think social media is the biggest innovation in how we communicate since the printing press. It is way ahead of
Yes.
TV and radio,
Oh,
and
big time.
any sort of hesitance in interacting with it is just it's almost pathetic in a way. You really need to be on top of it. And
Right.
for the orchestra, I have students who are 13 and 14 and 12. All
Yeah,
of
they've
them,
never not known it.
they're younger than Twitter. It makes no sense that we're not using it. And originally we had during the course to get them to generate content, we have a tweet of the day competition, and they use the hashtag, and then we keep retweeting things so parents
Okay.
and other people can see it.
I'm
And
gonna
sort
have
of,
to follow you on Twitter because I Twitter was like the last thing I sort of started
it's a
going
tricky
into.
one. It's finding the right place for your voice. So
Yes.
in year one, we used Twitter because that's the only one I was vaguely sort of getting into apart from Facebook. And from all the students, we're like, we don't care about Twitter. It's for old people. We use Instagram. So the next year, we then had to incorporate an Instagram hashtag competition as well. This year, we're now going to use Snapchat geo filters during the course and during the concert as well. So there's going to be a Snapchat geo filter for the concert at the venue.
That's great.
So it's still getting this, and for me, it's going to be a slight tangent now, but it's trying to find additional layers of experience for what you're delivering. So
Hmm.
I know this won't go down well in America, but I'm a really big rugby supporter, which for some reason you guys don't particularly like. And last time I went to an England national game, it cost what 3, 4 times the amount it cost me for a concert ticket, but I'd pay it every time.
Uh-huh.
So if you go to a classical concert, you pay your money. At best, you buy a program and you read the program. That's your secondary experience. And you sit there and you listen. You get your primary one, and that's it. With the rugby experience, I got off the tube. I then the walk to the stadium. It's like a carnival. There's people sort of selling merchandise. You
Yeah.
get into a little bit just outside the stadium. There's like live jazz bands. There's a beer tent, a prosecco tent. There's food. There's like a youth tag rugby game where there's like ex-international players coaching them outside that anyone can watch. You get into the stadium, instead of buying a drink that costs £4 and you having to like take your glass back, they charge you £6, but you keep this little merchandise like cup. You get in, there's like a massive hashtag things going around the entire stadium for you to take photos, and they put that up there. There's all these additional layers of benefits, and what for me is it doesn't take away from the main thing.
Hmm.
So you go away talking about the main experience, the rugby, the score, what happened, and like that's your main thing. It hasn't diluted it. It's just added additional value. And it's
Right.
for me, it's never about cost now. It's about time. So I'm worried that I'm competing with salsa dancing, speed dating, gin tasting, all these other things. That's what I'm competing against, not other
Yeah.
concerts. I have to give people sort of deliver value for their time that they invest in it.
That is a very interesting point of view. I like to hear more. I love to hear that because it never occurred to me in that way. You know, you're not competing against other concerts. You're competing against what people are going to spend their time on.
So much, and I think money's tight for everyone. But if I wanted to, I reckon I could like squeeze out the money to go to a concert and a rugby game if I was desperate.
Right, and
But
that's true. You're right. Money is tight, but people always find the money for things they really want to do. Like you said,
exactly,
you're going to go to that rugby game because you love rugby so much. And when you go there, you have so much fun. It's like from the like you said, the moment you get off the tube, you're in like a carnival situation where you have all these different, foods and drinks and all kinds of things. It's
exactly.
cool. It sounds really fun. And while you were explaining that, I thought, gee, is he going to say that he's going to do this for the Young Sinfonia? Like you're going to get off the subway and then before you know it, there's, a youth string quartet playing,
I'd love it, and like especially professional orchestras, they should have this sort of not should, but it'd be a really good idea to have sort of young people who are connected to the orchestra, like their training schemes. They're performing outside or in a different room. There's like sometimes there's pre-concert talks, but like maybe a
right.
get to know so and so or a try your instrument area for kids, and you
Yeah.
could put so much around it. And going back to America, like you guys have nailed it with the NFL, like the Super Bowl. I will know who does your halftime show every single year. That comes
Hmm.
in our news as the main feature. No idea who plays or what the score is, but I know what the halftime show is.
Isn't that interesting?
Mm. And then again, like all the adverts are a thing with the Super Bowl as well. Like that's part of the experience of watching on TV is to like get the new Old Spice advert or something.
Yeah, like you expect it to be good commercials or you're
Mm.
disappointed. You're like, and then people start tweeting like, or, talking, hey, did you see that Doritos commercial was hilarious or whatever.
Yeah, and if
You know?
you're interested in football, you're still going to be there for the football. Like you're going to be there going, "Oh, Tom Brady, he was amazing. I love that pass. That was amazing." And like you'll be talking about that for years. It's not taking away from the primary experience.
Right, but
Um,
it can provide something for people who don't give a shit about football like me.
oh
I'll
God,
still go
yes,
for the food and maybe I'll watch a commercial in the halftime show and then I'm like, okay, it's time to go.
exactly.
I can
Yeah,
find out who won later.
exactly. Like why would you go for one experience when you can have like something that's multi-layered and you get more from it?
Oh, absolutely. So I know, and this really feeds into your blog post that you shared, and you said this is this might be I don't know I don't remember the word you used, but you were you said something like this was a little bold or something I don't know, and I read it and I loved everything you said. You're like, why can't we drink drinks inside the hall, and why can't
Oh,
we do
every
this or
time.
that?
It
So
annoys me so much. Like I'm a grown adult. I don't, especially if I spend like what $10 on a gin and tonic. Like I'm not going to spill it. Nothing in the world will make me spill that drink.
and make sure it's in glass. I'm not going to drop it. I don't want to drink out of a
Exactly.
plastic cup.
Like
You
if it
know.
was some sort of rave gig and you're like jumping all over the place, fair play. But mid sort of Marlo Adagietto, you're probably not going to be too rowdy.
Exactly. And you're right. $10 for a drink. There's no way that you're going to walk fast with that drink. You're
Exactly. And
guarding it
like,
with your life.
and in the UK, we've got a radio station called Classic FM, who you may know on social media because I know that they're quite good on that.
Yeah.
And they have a Classic FM wine society or wine club thing. So they've
Oh
worked
wow.
out that their audience like wine and
Hmm.
they deliver classical music, but they're still not putting two and two together and having like a collaborative thing. I know there's an orchestra in London who do a wine pairing with a concert. So you
Oh,
go and you find out about the wine, you get a free glass at the interval, you can buy a bottle to take home, and
oh,
it's a
I
different
love
one
it.
each time. It's like again, it's something adding on to the experience, and you still
You
listen to
know,
the music.
I know, and this feeds into the collaboration thing that I have said so much. Like you said something like about why are they wearing tuxedos and uncomfortable clothes when they should just be wearing concert black? And one of the things I thought was, aren't there fashion designers who want to get their stuff out in front of an audience? Why can't we have? I mean, obviously, we're not going to be wearing like runway coutures to play, but like if there's some up and coming people who want exposure and there's a group of people who like fashion, why can't we incorporate that and make it into like, hey, look, the symphony is wearing pieces by so and so and it's made out of
Oh,
this
definitely.
breathable flexible material, and I mean it can
Mm,
become a thing where like the people in the audience say, I really want to know about that suit jacket because I'm a business person and I would love, I mean it could just there's so much more stuff that can come out of these events. Like you're saying, it's so inspiring to think about it like that.
so much. The only time I can think about it is almost the wrong way of delivering that is Vienna Phil for their New Year's Day concert. They always have a so and so designer has designed the tails for all the people. Like, great that you're like giving something extra, but who is going to go out and buy like a $2,000 like set of
Exactly.
tails? Like it's a step too far. But I think some people are doing different things. I know Ray Chen again is he's sponsored by Gucci. Maybe not sponsored. I might have gone too far with that, but he does do things with them. Jess Gillam's one to look out for, who's a UK classical saxophonist. He was one of the finalists for Young Musician of the Year and wears like glittery trousers and things and like unbelievably hip. Like, also,
that's cool.
I realise in saying hip, I now sound like 68 and should retire. But,
I say hip.
At least it's not just me then. But, she's so on sort of performing, and her outfits are part of the performance, but they're not detracting, and they're very much stylish and fashionable, and you could make that into a whole thing if you wanted to.
Yeah, I think the point really is what you're saying is that there's so many different things that are part of the music that, they're part of the experience. It's like the visual experience. The drinking is, people love to do that. People love to go out and have a drink. It's part of society. It's part of what people do. I've said so many times, like along the lines of the blog post that you had, like, why do we think that all orchestra concerts need to be 2 hours long? Like, there's probably a lot of people who don't want to spend 2 whole hours of their night. Maybe they want to do a shorter concert, like 45 minutes or an hour, and then be able to go out after dinner, or after the concert, they can go out to dinner instead of trying to get like this early bird dinner at 6 o'clock, and then go to the concert and then be done for the night at 10:30. Maybe they want to go to a concert at 7, be done at 8, and have a nice dinner, and then they can keep going out after that. And maybe there could be something after the concert that's more of like a jazz, with wine, or, I think there's so many things people aren't thinking outside the box.
So much. And sort of 2 points would be, you say about going to like jazz things with wine. I've always wondered that in the UK there's a bar called Ronnie Scott's, it's like world famous jazz club. I'm thinking, why isn't there sort of an amazing sort of underground chamber music club where you go and there's people smoking and people drinking wine, it's all about the ambience, and it's still that sort of quirky alternative. But instead of being jazz music, it's like Schubert Trout Quintet,
right,
or Mendelssohn Octet, or something completely different.
Yeah, or some new. Do you know this group? Wow, we really got on a tangent, but I'm having a good time.
It's the best way. Like, this could go on for hours. Make it into
Yeah. I interviewed this string quartet called Brooklyn Rider, and they have done so much cool collaborative efforts to write pieces just for them. And they're what I love about it is that it's not like this crazy modern music that you would never relate to. Like, it's like one that it's in particular is written by this jazz pianist and composer, and he, the quartet is really cool. And I found it on YouTube, and they improvised and played it with a drum set. It was the composer's VJ Iyer, and it was like they used it at a dance festival, and it was so neat because it was modern. But then at the same time, they'll say, "Hey, now that I've got," I feel like their general message is, now that we have your attention with some kind of funkier, different kind of string quartet music, now we're going to play Schubert. Now we're going to play Mozart too. And you'll get introduced to it, even though you kind of maybe initially were drawn to us for other things, So I think there's another way to kind of bring people that haven't always been followers of string quartet or classical music.
Definitely, yeah. I think it's a fantastic way to immerse people. And sort of following on from all this, that one of the main sort of criticisms that happens when you try to give these additional values or incorporating new things and adding extra layers is the amount of people who will come and say that you're dumbing down or detracting or patronising music.
Totally.
It pisses me off beyond belief. It really, really does. And with the blog post you mentioned, it was the first time in my life I ever got Twitter abuse. And it was genuinely the first response within 5 minutes was all this abuse came out. I was like, where did this come from? And amazingly, all the feedback afterwards was quite positive. But I can't believe that people are. The bit that gets me is that people assume that classical music has an inherent right to exist, and it really, really doesn't. There's so many art forms that must have gone by the wayside over the years and centuries and things, and we don't have this inherent right. We're not it's not a divine thing that God has come down and plays classical music that we should all then consume, and we are way above everyone else, and we deserve funding, and we deserve an audience, and we deserve to sit in reverence of this divine thing that we're being delivered. I will sit here for the next hour and tell you how much I love classical music and how amazing it is. But do I think it has this inherent right to exist? No. We need to make sure we justify it.
Yes, and that it's relevant to the society that's current. I agree. I couldn't agree with you more. I feel the same way about classical music. I love it. But, I also love a whole bunch of other kinds of music. And it's not just because classical is historical and, you know, special for a variety of reasons, it doesn't, there's not this, it shouldn't have this like justification, like you said, that it deserves to be there no matter what, regardless of whether people listen to it or people go to the concerts. It's
Exactly.
ridiculous.
I saw an article earlier, and it was saying about a concert going experience, and that it wasn't really well attended. But this person prefers it because the acoustics is better when it's not attended. You think, what's the point? It's going to like slowly turn up to if you do a concert in a field and no one's there to hear it. It's actually a concert.
That's hilarious. Oh wow. This is so much better. I'm the only person in the audience. Thank you for not coming.
Oh, the acoustics is fractionally better. It's wonderful. Uh,
Totally. Oh my gosh, that's almost embarrassing that the person even said that in
I know.
public.
I know.
So so yeah, so along the lines of creating more modern things in orchestra, like what else do you teach at YYS? Because I think that there was something on your website about courses. And so is there some kind of other things that you teach that kind of bring musicians more skills for today's world in this in modernizing classical music?
Very much so. So during the week itself, we have a series of workshops and things that are built around basically my frustrations of things that I didn't know when I was getting into music when I was young, or
Hmm.
skills that I wish I could have had and developed at a young age. Probably the main one that's the main innovation at the moment is this summer we're going to become the first youth orchestra to be 100% digital.
Oh
So we're going to
wow.
be using iPads instead of sheet music, and it's not just a display; it's an interactive score. If anyone's listening, check out Newzik, which is newzik.com. That's the app that we'll be using, and it's an entirely interactive score. So not only do you turn pages with a foot pedal, they're all synced to each other. So say like in the cello section, I write a bowing on, and instead of turning around, I just press a button, and it will synchronize to everyone else's
Oh wow.
iPads. Say you're thinking, oh, I wonder what the flutes are doing in X bar. You can press a button, and that then brings out the flute score underneath your line. So it's completely interactive. There's so many features, and I can't recommend it highly enough. That's our big development for this year.
Wow. Okay, so that perfectly leads into my next question because that sounds expensive. How does that get paid for?
Yes, well, I'll just quickly rattle through the other extra workshops. So we also do stuff on
Oh, sure.
performance psychology, performance etiquette, how to
Oh,
apply
great.
to university and the system for doing that. What it's like to study music at a university, and what's the difference between that and a music conservatoire, which is quite different in the UK.
Okay.
So we give all these extra additional things to make sure that young people have experience talking to media, standing in front of an audience, understanding the performance psychology, which is huge in sport and for some reason still a
Yes,
massive like faux
totally.
pas in classical music. But yes, that's all the workshops and things.
Oh, that sounds fantastic, especially you know, helping people figure out where they should go to school or if they should go,
Exactly.
probably.
Like in
Yeah.
the UK, there's such a difference between going to a university or a traditional academic university to study music, or a music college or music conservatoire, and like that more vocational performance based element.
Hmm.
People are so suited to one or the other, and there's so many reasons as to what you should know and how you should approach it. And then giving them advice as to how they apply, how to audition, all this stuff gets thrust into there.
Right.
And again, performance psychology should be and mental health should be the two biggest issues we have with performing now. Um,
Absolutely. The mental thing is so important. I mean, I just remember being so depressed in music school. I don't know why. I mean, like when I think back to it, I'm like, wow, my life was so good. I mean, I didn't have anything to do except practice and, but I don't know. There's so much unknown and they don't talk about, you don't get talked to about your mental state and where you're going, what you're doing, what your life should be expected, to look
so
like, all these things.
I totally agree. And I was listening to a podcast by Gary Vaynerchuk, who's a phenomenal entrepreneur,
Yeah.
and he was talking to someone who's a sports person, and this person was saying about their life and what they do in a general day, and they had like training, other exercises, performance psychology, and mental health and well-being, and they had a distinction between performance psychology and how I perform, and then my mental health and well-being. and it was just thrown in as like as normal as push-ups or scales or
Wow.
studies. It was just this general, normal, open thing. And in classical music, we're still decades behind sport with that. It,
Right.
and for me, like I used to sit in lectures about improvising ornamentation, going, when is this ever going to be like useful in my life? But, but a compulsory elective on how to perform would have been infinitely better.
Oh, totally. I know. I took a history course on Robert Schumann's life and all the details surrounding his life. It was
Um,
boring. It was so boring.
like at best, it can be mildly interesting, but applicable.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly. I mean, there were some mildly interesting parts, when you hear about like his crazy, all the craziness. But
yeah,
other than that, I'm like, I was supposed to memorize this for a test? What?
yeah, exactly. As opposed to going like, what mental skills can I use to perform? How can I like maximize my practice time? All the stuff
Exactly.
that be if you're an elite athlete, you'd be inundated with. It's
Right.
it's incredible. But yeah, we can skip forward to the pay question if you like as
Yeah, for
well.
sure. Sorry to interrupt you because
Harking
that
back.
you
No,
had
no.
so you had so many good things to talk about your courses. So that's fascinating. And yeah. So tell me, that kind of wraps up, altogether how you get funding for the youth symphony, and also, how you pay for iPads and stuff like that. Like, how does that work? It might work differently in England. So, yeah, tell me.
Yes, so I think in general the American model seems to be more business savvy, corporate funded slash giving from individuals and
Right,
philanthropy.
nonprofits. Uh-huh.
Then if you looked across to Europe, that's more state funded sponsorship and arts funding there. The
Hmm.
UK is this weird in between the two, where sort of you don't get as much funding from the state or anywhere near as much, and it's harder to get. But likewise, you need to have this other edition of business savvy bit, which is, I think it makes the sector sort of torn between which way it should go and act.
Hmm.
For me, in creating this, I started out like way beyond naivety in how we like the difficulties it would be to create it and to fund it and all these things. So the long and short of it was sacrifice. So I'm 29. I live at home with my mum, which is not only not my grand ambition, I'm very certain it's not hers either. Like, all I want is my 29-year-old son to move back in. Fortunately, the dynamic works quite well. But I sort of had two options of whether I could do sort of a slowly catchy monkey type approach of growing it from something small and low risk and low cost and try and get it to snowball over a period of years, or go all in, full hog, chips down, and try and make it something big and exceptional,
Hmm.
which I think it has in a way. Like our media coverage has been incredible. With in our first 2 years, we connected with over 3 million people, which is
Wow.
absolutely staggering for a youth orchestra of 30 then 45. It's unbelievable.
Right.
So we're certainly punching well above our weight, and sort of put it in context. The National Youth Orchestra of Great Britain fundraises £1.5 million a year and has 16 members of staff, and I'm the only full time member of staff here and don't take a salary yet.
Oh my gosh, really? You don't
Yeah,
take
so
a salary yet at all?
no, not at all. So I've been supplementing it originally with teaching music and also bar work at a hotel.
Mm.
Which they also missed off the job application that I had to call bingo, which was one of these interesting moments in life. Like, stood in front of a room of people calling bingo, going, "What on earth has happened? Like, what's taken me to this stage?" But like, it needs to happen. I think I've become more comfortable in sort of admitting the sacrifice that's come with this, and that to make something great and to go with your passions, at some point you need to demonstrate well beyond you get or before you get the funding. And I know in the
Wow.
UK that funding tends to be largely establishment based, so they will more than often than not they will continue to funding or fund existing organisations with a track record of funding, who they've given funding to for 15, 20, 30 years.
Hmm.
And as a new entrepreneur one, it's quite tricky. I think why I've been clever is been getting resources in lieu of payments, so getting stuff for free, and that's really been a massive benefit. I think that's where I genuinely on the tip of my tongue was excelled, which I then feel quite embarrassed about saying. But it's genuinely the bit that sort of set us aside is the fact that we've managed to get so many resources for free, and that's really helped catapult us to attention.
Right. Okay, so do they have, excuse me for, my ignorance about this, but do you have the opportunity to form a nonprofit over there, or is it just like businesses are businesses and you raise money or you don't? I don't really know how that works in England, or if it's like it is in the US?
Yes, so the orchestra is a non-profit organisation, and then
Okay.
we have all the caveats that go in with that. We're not
Right.
quite a charity; it's something called a community interest company,
I see. Okay.
and the differences are probably quite boring. It just means we have a bit more flexibility in terms of how we act, but it does then limit our fundraising from sort of grants and places like that. So that's it's a mixed bag, but it does mean at the beginning when we're new, we can be a bit more flexible, which has been beneficial for a new organisation.
Right.
So yes, it is entirely non-profit, and we're now at the point because we've demonstrated so much. It's then attracting other funding options to us, which is really helpful.
That's great. Wow, I'm blown away by the sacrifices that you're making because I know how hard it is to move back home when you're in your 20s. And I moved home when I was in my 30s, early 30s. I came to a point in my career where I was like, wow, I just really can't afford to pay this apartment in Chicago anymore. I have to go home,
It's
you
tricky.
know?
It's tricky
Yeah,
redefining that dynamic, and
yeah,
yeah, as I said, I'm pretty certain my mum is also not entirely thinking this is the dream she was thinking of.
right.
But we rub along well, so it works out quite nicely.
That's good.
But I
That's
think
good.
with anything entrepreneurial and starting, you have to realize there's going to be sacrifice. And in the grand scheme of things, 3 years when I'm in my 20s isn't exactly the be all and end all. Like
Right,
if it all
exactly. It's not forever.
if it all goes wrong, I can sort of call it quits. I can get a steady whatever job and just sort of bumble along safely. At the moment, the sacrifices are paying off. Maybe not financially, but in terms of things it's achieving and the goals I'm setting and the way I'm defining success, they're the bits I'm ticking boxes for.
That is so inspiring. And it's funny you mentioned Gary Vaynerchuk and all these big entrepreneurs that are out there are they say the same things. They say that, you have to sacrifice things. You have to if you really believe in what you're doing, you can't, not always have everything that you want right away, you know.
Exactly, and sort of reasons why I think Wireless may continue to be successful is that I know that I will continue to stay up till like 2, 3 in the morning to learn things and try and save £50 or sell 10 tickets.
Right.
Whereas I think if you're an established orchestra that gets funding and it's guaranteed, you're not really going to sweat the small stuff of 10 tickets. Whereas for me, that's a massive, massive difference. Like
Right.
they will just clock off, go home, get the salary, get a pension, and that's it. And it's not necessarily driving innovation or things to move forward. It's just the status quo. And as long as they're funded and supported, whether what they're delivering is good or excellent or in between,
Hmm.
um, they'll just go through the motions. Whereas I know that
Yes.
I will just analyze every pound that I spend. Like
Oh,
with,
believe me, the complacency that comes with, that you have your certain amount of budget and it's taken care of, and so that concert didn't sell well. Oh well, who cares? The next one maybe will, and it doesn't matter. I'm going to go home now because it's 5 o'clock. You're not
exactly, yeah.
at you're not at that place at all. In the nitty gritty, which is the exciting place. They always say that everyone remembers the climb, and that's what you're at right now. I look forward
So,
to hearing more about what happens later. We'll have to have you back on the
oh,
podcast
thank
when,
you.
in a year or something or two, or
Definitely.
and hear what's changed because you are just doing great things.
Oh,
So I
thank you
want
very
to
much.
I want to ask you. I always ask my guests about their defining moments in their careers. I call it the screw this moment, where you where you're in your career and you're like, no way, screw this, I'm not doing this anymore. So and you choose an unknown, and clearly you're forging an unknown path right now. But did you have a moment like that in your career or your life?
Oh, moments, no. Moments, yes. So it's definitely a plural one. In general, I'm quite stubborn, so I'm used to just saying screw it. In general, probably not the best of times to a point where it's a flaw. But
Right.
the ones where it's been proactive would be taking the job abroad. That was a screw it, what have I got to lose? And
Hmm.
that then really sort of, I left quite deflated from music conservatoire and sort of didn't know what to do. And that was a real, once I was there, I had this sense of belonging and it sort of developed my sense of pedagogy and how I wanted to teach and what I understood as education. Um, then when I came back, I originally started just because I didn't know what to do in effect, and sort of
Right.
just sort of bumbled along. But the bit that gave it spark was the first bit of opposition I got, and there's various like county councils, or I'm trying to think what the American equivalent would be, like state authorities, but a lot smaller.
Hmm.
Uh, and I sort of going to them, sort of talk to them about making partnerships. It'd be really good, and I was very sort of naive, but sort of making it a bit wishy-washy. Oh, we could do this. It'll be the most amazing thing. We can provide the best level of this. Wouldn't it be great if we could do this? And we'll all work together and we'd all be really happy. Which it was more sort of my aspirations for the project, but may have come across as fractionally cocky. Sort of may have been a I can do this better, but it was phrased better than I probably said then. And yeah, I went to this one meeting where I was expecting it as we tick all these boxes, I tick all these things in the National Plan for Music Education. It would just be turning up, tick box, go home, everyone's a winner. And it was meant to be a half-hour meeting, and it went on for an hour and a half where I got ripped to shreds.
Oh, jeez.
It was outrageously confrontational. And straight away from leaving then, it sort of straight away clicked. Like, that was my stubborn trigger, like completely like turned on. And yeah, went to, well, I can show you, I think I can do it better. I've got to show you how much better I can do it, blah, blah, blah. And that was then just fuck it, I need to make this happen. And that then made me sort of get on top of, I need to know my offering, I need to make sure I go into meetings knowing exactly my shit and sort of what I'm going to do. I've never been into a meeting underprepared since then. And also then going, making sure that I offer something and they're 100% getting something out of the meeting. Favourite quote at the moment is, the art of good business is being a good middleman, which is from Layer Cake, if you've ever seen the film. Daniel Craig film, who's the James Bond guy. But lots and lots of drugs in that film. Very good film. But the sort of what I took about from that quote was being a good middleman isn't necessarily between two people. It can be between a person and a thing that they need, so that they're getting value from it. So, say, for example, when I went to Welcome to Yorkshire, who are the big tourism board here, they wanted things that tick their boxes for culture and Yorkshire pride and identity and tourism events. So I went the whole pitch to them, not saying, what can you do for me? It was this is what I can do for you.
Right.
Put two and two together, and then I get an absolute ton out of it. So that was probably one of the biggest screw this moments and sort of cracking on with it. And actually, the other one's been quite recent. Again, a slight tangent, but I've been sort of desperate to input into the sector and have been trying to get jobs in the establishment. So I've been applying for sort of administration jobs with orchestras, like from entry level to quite high up, sort of not quite knowing where to pitch myself. And had quite a few interviews and kept getting knocked back and knocked back and knocked back for a year and a half, 2 years. And sort of it came to this conclusion of going, why am I putting myself through this? And the realization it wasn't because I wanted the job and the money, which I would quite like, but that I was sensing or was searching for validation from the sector that what I was doing was good, and that my self-worth was them going, oh, you are worth £25,000. Or that they're appreciating that I'm offering, doing something good, and that was where I'd put my self-worth and my value, and I was desperately wanting that. And came to this conclusion, I was mid-application form, and I was sort of, why am I doing this to myself? Like, I know I'm going to get knocked back. I know that all the things I do are sort of, they're too wide to put into a marketing job or a so-and-so job type thing.
Right.
I should probably just suck it up for a bit longer, screw that, and keep going with what I'm doing. And that's been where this has then come from. So now I'm focusing more on, one, the orchestra, and two, more entrepreneur things and talking to young people and giving workshops about entrepreneurship in classical music and trying to sort of evoke change in the sector from my point of view as opposed to fitting into what's already there.
That's fantastic. And, sometimes the universe has a way of showing you that, right? By keeping on not getting accepted on jobs. And I actually did a post recently just essentially about this exact thing. You were trying to get validation and you were trying to get a paycheck, and it maybe wasn't really what you truly wanted, but you did it for these outside reasons. And then you realized, fuck it, I don't want that, and now you're doing what's really what you truly want.
Exactly. And it's sort of this assumption that the orchestras that exist, they've been around for 100 years, they're sort of set in stone, like this divine right thing. We don't necessarily have to fit in with that system.
Right.
And at some point, someone has founded that orchestra. They've founded the LA Phil, Boston Symphony. These things have been created by someone or some people just to bring music to people. And I think we should all be getting around to doing that a lot more than trying to desperately get second horn in the so-and-so orchestra type thing. We could make such a difference, have such more energy, and just streamline the whole system by creating more and being involved and trying to evoke change in a project where you're in control.
Oh, 100%. And I just posted something last night I ranted about music festivals because I remember when I was, in grad school, coming out of grad school, and I really wanted to go to, Pacific Music Festival or Tanglewood or one of these, and I tried out and I didn't get into any of them. Um, and I just felt like such a, failure because I didn't get into these things and I thought they were so important. And now I see what they are. They're just like a status symbol for musicians, to say they've done this or done that. And you make this thing so much bigger than yourself. And 30 years ago, somebody created that festival, or 20 years ago or whatever. Just somebody, somebody like you or me. And now it's so many years later and oh, it's this esteemed festival. Well, what's stopping you from creating your own festival? Why do you have to wait for somebody else to say you can be part of their festival? Screw it, you know?
Couldn't agree more. 100%. And the thing is, you'll find out so much from doing it. And I think
Yeah.
the bit for me is you're going to start with so few of the answers. Like the things I've had to learn that I didn't even know that I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
So I finally found words to sort of understand that later, where you have known knowns, things that you know, known
Yep.
unknowns, things you don't know, and unknown unknowns. And there are a ton of unknown unknowns.
Right. You just
It's
don't know you don't know them. Totally.
exactly, and it's not panicking when you find them, like going, oh crap, what on earth are like Google search analytics, all this crap. Like, I need to get my website found. I need my festival to be found on Google, but it's like on page 9 behind all this other stuff.
Right. I know. And that's the thing. It's hard as classical musicians, to put yourself in a situation where you're going to screw up and make mistakes and fail. And
Mm,
we're so used to feeling like everything has to be perfect all the time, especially before we present it to somebody. And entrepreneurial way of life is nothing of the sort. So, a few colleges here are starting music entrepreneurship classes, but you can't learn it and perfect it before you try it. That's the catch. It's the
totally
catch.
agree. And I think as well, it's important to know that you don't necessarily have to go all chips in as an entrepreneur. I think having some of the skill sets are good for people. Like for me, it suits the fact that I have gone full. I am an entrepreneur. I'm doing this. It's all I do.
Hmm.
But say you're running a teaching project on the side or you're a private teacher, some of the little skills that are a bit more entrepreneurial could benefit you. But at the same time, you don't have to go, I am a full entrepreneur.
Totally.
It's finding where you fit and finding what works for you.
Right.
It's
So many
definitely
little
the
things, so many little things. Like I have a friend who I interviewed recently. Her podcast will come out soon, but she started a long time ago a reed business. She's an oboe player.
Oh, amazing.
And it started out as like her friend needed reeds and was having some carpal tunnel syndrome and couldn't make reeds. So she was making them just for her friend. And then some other people found out about it. And this was like before the internet. People had to call her on the phone to order and then she would mail them. And now and now it's the internet exists, and she created a subscription thing so people can save money and have auto ship. It's like you said, she's incorporated some entrepreneurial things, some common things that are more modern into her. That's an example of someone who was already entrepreneurial from a very young or a lot younger age. But like you said, you don't have to do something as wild as create a youth orchestra. You can do some smaller things that, like have an event or, have a weekend long, intensive for the violin or whatever. There's things you can do entrepreneurial that don't, you can still keep doing your teaching lessons and other things that are more safe, I guess you could say.
So much. I have a friend who teaches on the side. It's sort of say 2.5 days work a week,
Uh-huh.
and sort of to try and add to the benefit she's giving, like we are saying earlier, she's realised that the community around the teaching is actually really important. So while parents are waiting, they have a little waiting room and there's tea and coffee and biscuits. They have like a Halloween party. There's all these little bits of community things. There's a group Facebook. So not only is she offering lessons, she's offering like a community to the parents who might be
Oh my gosh.
isolated. The only time they get to talk to someone else without their kid is when they're waiting for the music lessons. She's just catering not just to the student and delivering the music, but also then to the parent as well. It's this additional benefit
That's
thing.
a fantastic idea. What if a parent's trying to decide between two teachers and the second teacher has this really great opportunity to meet other people and just free cup of coffee?
Exactly, and like their Facebook group's bustling, and they're always chatting in there, and they sort of it's more community, and she gets presents from it, so there's a bit of return as well.
Oh my
So
gosh, that sounds great. I'd love to meet her.
It's brilliant. It builds this whole community around it. It's such a good idea for these sort of things to sort of find out what extra things you can give. And in reality, it doesn't really cost them much either. Like the Facebook group, free. Tea
Right,
and
exactly.
coffee probably has it anyway. It's yeah,
Right,
it's adding extra things. And also, she doesn't talk to the parents. She doesn't instigate their interaction. They just chat between themselves.
right. And it's just they're hanging out in her space while she's teaching the lesson. Is that what she does?
Yeah, so it's like sort of like a side room type thing, and then they'll have like a specific like Halloween party and concert, and then like a an Easter party
Oh,
and concert, and it's all themed and things like that. So it's
that's way more fun than saying you have to come to your kid's recital today.
oh,
Instead,
definitely
it's like it's a party and a recital.
exactly, and it's also come to your kid recital and see your friend so and your friend so and all these different people you
Exactly.
already know, and you're like, it's basically yeah, like you say, like a party type thing where you will know the people and the kids. It's the community element.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so great. So, what is your next big goal? Like, if you're thinking, I know you have so many cool things planned for YYS, but what is what's another big one that you have on the horizon, or just maybe in the back of your head that you think would be cool to do?
So there are a few. So I've recently sort of done a bit of an evaluation and taken stock of things, sort of as my recent screw this moment. So I'm much more keen on trying to deliver skills and talking about entrepreneurship and creativity. So I want to do that a lot more at the moment. Incredibly, I'm actually coming to America in October, I think, touch wood,
Oh,
to do some talking about this as well. So hopefully that's going to be something as well. Uh,
great.
and basically try and interact with as many people as possible and just provoke debate that we really should be changing the sector. Like we haven't changed in 150 years.
Hmm.
It's and it was a time when it was changing, where Wagner like did things with lights, and all. Yeah, so basically the concert setting is so different. It used to change all the time,
Right.
and since 1910, 1920, it's stopped and we're stagnant. So
Hmm.
I'd love to provoke more debate about change, and open up the conversation and make sure it's a positive one that isn't about dumbing down or anything. It's actually how can we make this better.
Yes.
So I'd love to be more involved in that. For YYS, I'm really keen on trying to get us in a BBC prom at some point in the future.
Mm.
If you know the Proms concert series,
Hmm.
they often have youth orchestras. The National Youth Orchestra here play every year. The National Youth Orchestra of Scotland do every now and then. So I'd love to try and showcase Yorkshire culture there and make it a bit more sustainable and have long-term impacts. Uh, and then on top of that, I'd love, sort of, if you come across Gary Vaynerchuk, he always talks about buying the Knicks, and he's desperate to do that, and that's his main thing. For me, I'd love there to be a professional symphony orchestra in Yorkshire, and as I say, we've got 5.5 million people here, and there isn't a dedicated full-time professional symphony orchestra.
Yes.
Absolute madness. Like we've got Opera North and Northern Ballet, and although they sometimes do concerts, it's not their main delivery, but also their geographical remit is from like Nottingham to almost Scotland. Um, Basically, a large area that isn't just Yorkshire is probably the best way of putting that. But sadly, the one we did have stopped in the 1950s, and we're missing having something like that. So I'd love to try and be involved in creating the environment for that to be something that's feasible. So even if I'm not involved, the fact that I'm helping create young musicians who are interested in having their own projects or help develop audiences and try and build the culture in Yorkshire to a point where we can sustain that would be something I'd love to do.
Oh, that sounds great. That
And
sounds awesome.
if I'm involved, even better.
That sounds fantastic. So, tell me what is a habit or behavior you've developed that has made the most difference in your career so far?
Ooh, very good question. Um, Probably stubbornness, which I know is
Mm.
also a flaw. Um, but I am utterly determined to learn things when I don't know them.
That's
So, for
great.
example, I got really, really annoyed at how much I was going to have to spend with the designer for a poster, and I was so keen at like looking not crap.
Right.
Um, and he was going to charge me like £500 or like 500, 600, $700 or something. And I was like, how can it be? So basically, then bought like the Adobe Creative Cloud package with Photoshop, InDesign, all that stuff, and then just spent evening after evening watching YouTube tutorials,
On
and
how
then
to
taught myself
design.
exactly. And that's been sort of the best thing, the fact that I'm so keen on learning, and I don't think I'm inherently talented. I think I'm inherently determined and curious.
Interesting. That's awesome. And so the last question I have for you is who in the classical world inspires you? And tell me why, if possible, in one sentence.
That's a small challenge. Um, it's going to sound bad, but I generally look for my inspiration outside the classical world.
It
Like
doesn't sound
it's for me, it's the skills and the methods of like facilitating change and challenging establishments, the bits that really sort of I find the most meaning with.
Is there
Um,
someone?
Someone at the moment, my main thing is Gary Vaynerchuk, which I know is quite on trend.
Yeah, he's great though.
He's absolutely amazing. I've also completely forgotten the name of the other one who was the score line takes care of itself by someone who's an American football coach,
Mm.
which I'm now going to Google. As I'm sat next to you, not sat next to you, but sat next to the microphone. Because I will annoy you for a while. Bill Walsh, who's an
Okay.
American football coach. That's another one that's like an inspirational story. And the bits that I really like about that is how he tweaked every little element of an organisation to make sure it was all geared towards excellence. So he, even though his main thing was making sure they win matches, he made sure that the groundskeeping team were the best groundskeeping team in the league. He had like a whole script of like how the receptionists used to like answer phones and make sure they were answering phones in the best way possible in the league, and make sure this whole culture of excellence and sort of positive creativity was leading forwards. Classical music world, though, is a tricky one. I really like people like Two Set and Ray Chen who are challenging how we interact with music.
Yes.
Metropole Orchestra, my biggest one for like listening to music. Who do like they're a live jazz orchestra in Amsterdam. Their Basement Jacks album is absolutely incredible. I know you said just one, but I've gone on for about 4 hours now.
I know, and forget about that one sentence thing, but that's okay.
Come back to me in about 3 weeks. I'll be like down to like 7 words. I think sort of it's tricky to find inspiration. I like taking it from other sectors would be my main thing, and trying to apply sort of ways in how we act and function to classical music opposed to something specific.
I totally agree with you. It's great. I always think that you can get, in order to really think outside the box, you have to look outside the box, you know. You have to look at other people and what they're doing in other businesses, you know, sports or entrepreneurship or, you know, every other place, because you can bring in ideas from over there and apply them and figure out how they work for classical music. I'm 100% with you on that.
Definitely. While I remember the Philharmonia Orchestra in the UK, they're doing stuff with virtual reality, and that's been quite interesting to watch. So it's inspirational. They're taking that to like a new level.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, David. This has been a great podcast episode. I'm really excited for my audience to hear it. And everyone, if you are loving what you're hearing, please write a review on iTunes and join the conversation at facebook.com/crushingclassical and at Instagram on Crushing Classical, and now at Twitter, because I'm gonna dive into Twitter a lot more at Crush Classical. Thank you for listening. Bye.